This video is sponsored by Toy Hacks. Hasbro applies less and less paint to their toys every year, but thankfully we have Toy Hacks, amazing stickers that improve the look of your toys tenfold. They just released a set for the Devastation Bumblebee, which turns him from a drab, unpainted piece of plastic into an amazing reference to the classics version of the character, which is a toy I had as a kid. They look great and are fun to apply. You can get this set and many others at toyhacks.com, link in the description. Digimon is one of my favorite franchises of all time. I love the monster designs, and the idea of little monsters living within a computer world is so interesting. It's also something that can be reinvented and retold in so many ways. I also have a love for Transformers, and transforming toys in general, so the transforming Digimon toys I grew up with have always fascinated me, despite how bad some of them are. What's good, internet? Jake here, dumb as ever, and I love me some Digimans. I've actually talked about digivolving toys on the channel before, but I wanted to expand on that segment and really get into these figures. As I've done research, I have realized this topic is much more expansive than I thought, because from season 2 onwards, instead of importing the Japanese Digimon toys, Bandai America started making their own, meaning there's effectively 2 versions of most toy lines. So in this video, we're going to cover the toys released for the first 3 seasons, and I'm going to do a second video covering the rest very soon. If you have a love for toys or Digimon or both, please consider liking and subscribing. It ain't extra, and if you'd like to support me further, please hype the video. Algae Rhythm has been biting at my coattails like a mad dog, so I need your hype to fight him off. Digimon Season 1 is so iconic. It established so many important elements that each series following it would copy, and the cast is so memorable. Since I was born in 1996, I didn't watch a ton of this first season as a kid, but I had a VHS with my goat Wizardmon's death, and of course I knew these characters from the movie. So even though I didn't watch the show much as a kid, I'm still really nostalgic for these characters, as well as the toys. I definitely remember having some of these first digivolving toys, which were brought to America by Bandai. These toys are the exact same as the Japanese versions, which, as we will see, changes over the course of the toy line. First up, we have digivolving Greymon, who is a fat little chud, but I like him because I'm a fat little chud too. He transforms into Metal Greymon, and the 2 forms are similar enough that they both come out looking pretty good. I like how the helmet actually goes over Greymon's skull, and the Greymon tail becomes the wings, while Metal Greymon's tail flips out of the body. It's a very clever transformation, and the figure has decent articulation in both modes. We also had digivolving Garurumon, and again it works pretty well as a toy. Garurumon does look like he's wearing pants, but I don't think that can really be helped. Where Garurumon is a bit of a hunchback, but otherwise looks great. Digivolving Birdramon was not so lucky. The Birdramon mode is a real mess, with a ton of obvious and weird kibble. This is the biggest problem with these older digivolving toys. A lot of them have crazy kibble in one mode, with a decent looking alternate mode. In this case, Garudamon looks great. I wouldn't even know she digivolves just looking at the toy. Digivolving Patamon is a complete shell former, hiding all of Angemon within his body. Both modes actually look great because of this, though if you look at the back of Angemon's wings, you'll be greeted with a creepy Patamon eye, but that just makes this biblically accurate Angemon. One I definitely had as a kid was digivolving Kabuterimon, the giant bug Digimon, who I always thought was so cool. I love his Shogun helmet looking head design. There is a lot of kibble on his back, but he looks great from the front. The transformation into Mega Kabuterimon is super clever, especially considering the 2 are completely different colors, but the way they share limbs with plates covering them is so neat, and Mega Kabuterimon looks amazing. He's got the big beetle shell, which hides all of the Kabuterimon pieces. Finally, we have our 2 warp digivolving figures. I really loved the warp digivolving animation as a kid. Seeing the 3D versions of the other 2D forms was so cool. I had warp digivolving Agumon as a kid for sure, and I have to say, this might be the best digivolving figure of the whole line. Agumon is utterly adorable, and the transformation into War Greymon is so smooth. It's unbelievable how they were able to have 2 completely different monster forms look so good. War Greymon looks badass, though there are a couple notable issues. For example, his skin is more of an orange color in the show, and his backplate plates are just Agumon's big ass head, but for a toy from 25-ish years ago, it's very impressive. Gabumon was not so lucky. Bro looks like a mess, but Metal Garurumon came out looking pretty good, though a lot of these old figures have terrible tolerances on the ball joints, so some of them can't stand that well. Those were the main digivolving figures for season 1, but there were also deluxe digivolving playsets, which were kind of like Digimon meets Polly Pocket, or Mighty Max for my old heads. There were 2 sets. One was Agumon, whose head and chest could open into this rocky area. He came with little minifigures you could use in this micro playset. Agumon also came with a Greymon helmet and tail so you could digivolve him, and you can use these extra pieces with the micro playset. A very simple toy, but really interesting. And there was also Gabumon, who opened up just like Agumon into a micro playset. I really like this feature, where if you press this button, Where Garurumon pops out of a waterfall. It's a shame there weren't more digivolving toys. Some key characters like Gomamon, Palmon, and Gatomon are missing. Dumb Jake Digivolve 2? Metal Dumb Jake. New Metal Dumb Jake shirt, only available until May 15th. Link in the description. Season 2 was a show I watched more as a kid. My favorite Digimon from this season was Wormmon, who digivolves into Stingmon, a Digimon that is low-key a Kamen Rider reference. The main gimmick of this season were the Digi-Eggs, which were a focal point of this toy line. The line for Season 2 continued right on from where Season 1 left off, with a whole new set of digivolving figures. But with this set, the US figures were completely different from the Japanese figures, and they're often considered the worst versions. I don't know why Bandai of America decided to make all new figures, but for this video I'm going to talk about both versions. The main difference between them is that the Japanese toys come with the rookie Digimon and attachable armor pieces, while the American toys are the armored Digimon that digivolve into the eggs themselves. Starting with Flamedramon, we can really see the difference. The Japanese toy features a small version of Vmon, who looks okay if a bit awkward. He comes with the Digi-Egg of Courage, which can break apart into different pieces to form armor that combines with Vmon, turning him into a very awkward looking Flamedramon. He doesn't look very accurate at all to me. In comparison, we have the US version. This Flamedramon is much more accurate, with good proportions. Though he does have really hollow hands and feet, he transforms into the Digi-Egg of Courage. You have to take pieces off of him to complete the transformation, which is a bit lame considering how simple he is, and how ugly the egg mode is. It doesn't really look anything like the egg from the show. Let's continue with Vmon's evolutions, as he and most of the other Digimon had several Digi-Egg forms. Now the cool thing about the Japanese line is that you would get a starter set, for example Vmon with the Flamedramon Digi-Egg, and then all of the other Digi-Eggs would come separately, so you could use the same Vmon with them. This explains why Vmon is a bit goofy looking, and it also explains why Flamedramon didn't look accurate. Vmon has to be able to combine with a few different Digi-Eggs, so no one combination is going to be perfectly accurate. That being said, Raydramon looks much better than Flamedramon, with this figure being much more accurate, and a lot less awkward. The American Raydramon pulls off a much better Digi-Egg of Friendship mode, but its monster mode is just okay. He kinda looks like a weird dog more than a dragon. Finally for Vmon, we have Magnamon, which is the form he gets in Digimon the movie, a film I rented from Blockbuster probably 100 times as a kid, so I really like this form. Again, the Japanese version of the Digi-Egg of Miracles came out separately. It is made of armor pieces that can combine into the Digi-Egg, and it can also combine with the Vmon. This Magnamon is very similar to Flamedramon with how awkward it looks, though thanks to the extra set of legs he does look a bit more proportionate. The American toy kind of mogs the Japanese one in my opinion. The Digi-Egg form looks really accurate, and so does Magnamon, with great proportions and sculpting, though his side skirts are just way too big, making it hard for him to pose. Moving on to Hawkmon, his Japanese set came with the Digi-Egg of Love. Hawkmon looks a lot cuter than Vmon to me. You can turn him into Halcymon with the Digi-Egg, and I think he looks pretty good, though there is a ton of obvious kibble. The US version is kind of ass. I actually had him as a kid. The Digi-Egg mode actually looks terrible, and the Halcymon mode is just decent, though he has a giant hollow belly, and like the others in the line, he parts forms. Hawkmon's other form is Shurimon. The Japanese version is absolutely fantastic. Not only is the Digi-Egg of Purity very accurate, but so is the combined form with Hawkmon. Shurimon is easily one of the most accurate looking figures from the Japanese line, with Hawkmon's toes being the only kibble. The American version of Shurimon is also very accurate because of his design. The egg is just a giant shell for his main body, though the shell pieces majorly hinder articulation. Our last Digimon is Armadillomon, one of my favorite little guys. The Japanese Armadillomon is absolutely adorable, and he comes with the Digi-Egg of Knowledge, which can split apart and combine with him to form Digimon, who looks great. They really nailed Digmon's look, with pretty much all of Armadillomon being hidden, even his ears. The American version of Digimon is also very decent. His Digi-Egg mode is whatever, but Digimon himself is very well articulated, and looks great for the most part. There was also a Japanese version of Samaramon, which came as a standalone egg that could combine with Armadillomon. The transformation for this one is quite clever, and like Digimon, it's a very accurate toy. The American version is pretty good as well. Easy transformation again because of it being a shell former, but it has a very accurate Samaramon mode. Comparing the two toy lines is really interesting, because I don't think either is really that much better than the other. The American toy line tends to be more accurate in the Digimon designs, while the Japanese line has a play pattern that's way more fun. There was one more Japanese Digi-Egg toy that didn't get an American equivalent, featuring Patamon with the Digi-Egg of Hope, which could transform him into Pegasusmon. Both of these modes look excellent. There was a Gatomon that could transform into Nefertimon planned, and even prototyped, but it was cancelled and never came out, leaving the team incomplete. In addition to the Digi-Egg figures, there were also some traditional digivolving toys, as well as some DNA Digivolution toys, which was the other gimmick of the season, where two Digimon could digivolve together. For example, we had XVmon and Stingmon. Just like the other figures, there are Japanese and American versions. The Japanese versions of XVmon and Stingmon are very good, though XVmon does look a bit weird because he has super thin arms. The way these figures combine is so cool. Stingmon basically opens up like a mech suit, and you fit XVmon's body inside. It's extremely clever, and Paildramon looks great, being pretty accurate to the show. The American version of this concept is completely different. Instead of combining two separate toys, the American version features all of the different forms as one toy, so you can transform it into XVmon, Stingmon, or Paildramon. XVmon kinda just looks like a dude, Stingmon looks crazy inaccurate due to all of XVmon's blue, and Paildramon looks the best out of the three, likely because the toy was designed around him. Looking at the back of the toy reminds me of that meme of Homer Simpson. Just a complete horror show back there. I think compared to the Japanese version, this toy kind of blows. Interesting in concept, but not execution. There was also a DNA Digivolving figure of Sylphimon. This toy was a US exclusive, so it has no Japanese counterpart. This toy is a mess. It's based around Sylphimon, the combined form of Gatomon and Aquilamon. Sylphimon is the best looking of the three modes, being fairly accurate, while Aquilamon is decent and Gatomon is just bizarre. Gatomon is a little cat with gloves, so she was always going to be difficult to fit into this combination, but they chose to make her form in a sitting pose, and her head is a gigantic removable piece that doesn't interact with the other two modes. Not to mention her gloved paws are represented by chicken legs. It's a very odd design, and it's crazy this was Gatomon's only toy that could digivolve. We had two normal digivolving toys, one of which was a repaint of War Greymon, being Season 2's tragic villain Black War Greymon, who looks awesome. Same great toy as Season 1, but he now has much more consistent colors between the two modes, and plus black is just a cool color. Finally, we have Imperial Dramon, which is the only toy to be the same in Japan and America, mostly. The American version was downsized, but besides that, it was the same figure, and it's still a decent size for an action figure. Imperial Dramon doesn't really digivolve, he just has two different modes. Dragon mode and fight mode, and both look great. I really like the look of dragon mode. Dragons are just dope, and I love the way Digimon does them. Fighter mode also looks very accurate. There was a Japanese exclusive white repaint of the toy, representing Imperial Dramon's Paladin mode, complete with a sword made from Omnimon's body. This is such an awesome looking repaint. So that's all the main Digivolving figures, but just like Season 1, there were deluxe Digivolving playsets. I absolutely had Vmon as a kid. I don't remember him too well, but I remember that he was one of my childhood toys after seeing a picture of him. He comes with armor to turn him into a cute little Flame Dramon, and as usual you can open him up to reveal a micro playset, with micro figures included. There was also Hawkmon, who could turn into an adorable Halcymon, and of course Armadillomon, who could turn into Digimon. Overall, this was a bigger toy line thanks to the different versions, so you have a lot of collecting options. Without a doubt, Digimon Season 3 is my favorite. Digimon Tamers was a show that shook up the whole dynamic. Instead of following the cast from Season 1 and 2, Tamers was set in the quote-unquote real world, where Digimon is just a normal franchise loved by kids. That is until they start breaking out of their video game into the real world. Digimon Season 3 came out in a time where I had gained full sentience, and it's the show I connected with the most. It has a lot of raw emotion put into it, and it just felt a bit more mature and real compared to its predecessors. The Digimon designs are at their absolute peak in this season. Plus, they put my goat Terriermon from the movie into the show. I have like 100 favorite Digimon, but Gargomon will always be in the top 3. Despite the show being different, the toy line itself pretty much stayed the course, with America making their own toys instead of importing the Japanese versions. But this time the Japanese line was very small, and most of the figures discussed here will be the US versions. This US line also changed a couple things. There were now 2 Digivolving toy lines. The normal 5-inch figures, which had Digimon digivolving to their next forms, and there was also the 8-inch Warp Digivolving line, which usually featured rookie Digimon digivolving into their mega forms. This line also re-released several metallized versions of previous toys. Metallized meaning they had chrome metallic paint applied to them. Metallized versions include Agumon to War Greymon, Flame Dramon, and Digimon, as well as several new figures, which we'll get into right now. First we have Growlmon to War Growlmon. We'll start with the Japanese version, which looks decent. Growlmon has okay articulation, and in War Growlmon form, his chest plate is actually made out of die-cast metal, which is a pleasant surprise. All of the Japanese Digimon toys have die-cast metal included. The American version is very similar, though I have to say I think I prefer its sculpt. To me it just looks more cartoon accurate, but it does lack in articulation comparatively, and it doesn't have die-cast metal pieces. You could get a metallized version of him, which featured his chest and arm armor in metallic red. Next we have Digivolving Cubimon to Taomon. This is one of the toys in the line that has no Japanese counterpart, so we only have the American one to look at. The Cubimon mode is decent. I think it gets the design across well enough, though there's no earthly way they were going to be able to give her all 9 tails, so she has like 5. Transformation into Taomon leaves her with all of Cubimon on her back, and Taomon has almost no articulation. I think it's impressive enough they managed this toy at all, with these two forms being wildly different. The metallized version featured chrome paint applied to Cubimon's tails and Taomon's chest. Next up we have Gargomon and Rapidmon. The Japanese version featured Gargomon with no ammo belt and extremely limited articulation. The transformation is very clever, with Gargomon's pants becoming Rapidmon's armor and his arms opening up to reveal Rapidmon's blasters. It's a fun transformation. Rapidmon looks a bit awkward to me. His ears are coming out of his shoulders, and the roundness of his design isn't really really coming through. His arms and head are made out of die-cast metal. I had the American version as a kid, so I'm probably biased, but I think it mogs the Japanese version. Gargomon actually has his ammo belt, as well as his arms being the right color and having elbow joints. He has a lot of back kibble though, and his feet aren't accurate at all, but I think he just looks better. The transformation isn't nearly as clever, but Rapidmon also ends up looking so much better to me. The sculpt just looks much more accurate, though his face is wrong. In the show, you can only see Rapidmon's eyes, while the American toy has his full face revealed. The toy seems to be based on this piece of art, where you can see Rapidmon's face. It's not something I personally mind that much, but I do have to admit his cartoon look is much cooler. His ears are still sticking out of his shoulders, but it looks a lot less obvious. And one of the biggest negatives on this figure is that he just looks a bit stumpy, but in a rare instance, the US version has better articulation. The metallized version featured Rapidmon's body painted in green chrome. Outside of the main 3 Digimon, we had Magna Angemon to Seraphimon, 2 of the coolest designs. Though this toy looks kind of awful, Seraphimon is basically glued to Magna Angemon's back, and neither forms really have any articulation. We also had Leomon, a fan favorite character that seems to be doomed a tragic fate in every series. His toy is kind of awesome. He looks great, carrying the spirit of the character in sculpted form. And he has okay articulation, better than usual anyway. They even gave him his big ass knife that he uses in the show. The toy transforms into Saber Leomon, and what the actual hell is this? For context, this is what Saber Leomon looks like. This freaky ass mode looks like Leomon is going through some sort of horrible mutation. I think whoever was working on this toy genuinely gave up midway through. Kind of crazy how one of the best looking Digimon transforms into one of the worst. Gardromon also got a toy. He can digivolve into Andromon, and I think both modes look great, even though the transformation relies on some heavy shell forming, leaving most of Gardromon on Andromon's back. There is another huge issue though. All copies of this toy seem to have a faulty crotch piece. The plastic seems to just fall apart. It reminds me of an issue Transformers fans know as gold plastic syndrome, where a specific type of plastic has a habit of shattering. I wonder if the same plastic was used on this toy. Regardless, the toy can absolutely not stand up, which sucks because despite the shell forming, I think it looks really good. Finally, we have digivolving Cyberdramon, who looks awesome. I love a dragon dude, and the metal mask hiding his eyes is so cool. He transforms just like Magna Angemon, where all of Justamon is on his back, but he does a much better job with the kibble. Like I said, he digivolves into Justamon, a Digimon actually based on Kamen Rider, which I kind of see with the scarf and belt. The Justamon toy is a bit awkward looking, not really matching the proportions of the show. He does come with a swappable arm accessory though, and Cyberdramon's wings kind of mimic Justamon's scarf, which is clever even if it doesn't look perfect. Moving on to the larger warp digivolving figures, we have Guilmon to Gallantmon. There's actually 2 different versions of this figure, though they are extremely similar. The Japanese version is smaller, has a bit better articulation, a cloth cape, and chromed out weapons. It looks very good, and better than the US version, but unfortunately the white plastic used yellows horribly. It looks like it's been in a chain smoker's house, but this is just what happens when the toy has prolonged contact with air. It's a flaw of the plastic itself. The US version is a lot bigger, but a lot of the quality is gone. Both versions of Guilmon look terrible, but the Japanese version can slightly bend its knees, while the US version kind of just stands like a dude. Warp Digivolving Impmon also had a split release. Like the rest of the line, both have their pros and cons. The Japanese version's Impmon looks a bit more accurate, while the US version's Beelzemon looks fantastic, though it severely lacks articulation compared to its counterpart, but the Japanese Beelzemon just looks awkward with super long arms. I think it's interesting that the most popular sentiment I've seen is that the Japanese toys are much better than the American ones, when in my opinion, it seems like most of these toys have a lot of pros and cons between each other, and I've hardly seen a case where one is absolutely perfect compared to the other. Next up we have Warp Digivolving Renamon, who looks really bad in Renamon mode. As per usual, her form was sacrificed for the mega evolution she turns into. Her body and arms are almost all black because of the evolution, and her tail is this weird gray piece that's meant to be Sakuyamon's hair. Sakuyamon looks pretty okay, though she's mostly a statue, and mid-transformation there's this horror show where she doesn't have any eyes. There's been a lot of body horror going on with these toys that I haven't mentioned, but this has to be the worst of it, thanks to Sakuyamon's humanoid face. Warp Digivolving Terriermon is absolutely adorable. This might be the best figure in the line, mostly because I love Terriermon, even though this version has disgusting green toes. But also because the Mega Gargomon mode is great. Not only is it super accurate, aside from the giant Terriermon strapped to his back, but it has decent articulation, including articulated hands, which is so random and cool. A figure I didn't even know existed is the Warp Digivolving Lopmon, Terriermon's twin. Both figures are almost the same size, which is awesome. Lopmon transforms into Kirpymon, a Digimon I always found to be omega creepy. I mostly knew him from the movie. The face is even creepier on the toy, because they gave him like dilated pupils, and it looks like both eyes are looking opposite ways. Still, it's a decent version of the character, and like Terriermon, he's one of the highlights of the line. We also had Mode Change Gallantmon, who doesn't really digivolve per se, but he was in the Warp Digivolving line. Basically, it was a version of Gallantmon that you could attach armor pieces to, turning him into Gallantmon Crimson mode. He's pretty cool, the chrome on him looks great, but he's also not that interesting to me since he doesn't really transform. Also, I should mention this figure also has gold plastic syndrome. His elbows are prone to shattering. Finally, we have Warp Digivolving Omnimon, which comes with War Greymon and Metal Garurumon. Both transform and combine to form Omnimon, which is cool as hell, even though War Greymon and Metal Garurumon are pretty compromised design-wise, and Omnimon has some of the worst back kibble ever. Even with those issues, the idea is just too cool. The toy is mostly the same between the US and Japan, but the Japanese version is bigger, has better paint, and comes with a cloth cape that can hide all the kibble. Unfortunately, both versions suffer from horrific GPS. The white plastic falls apart super easily, meaning most copies are ticking time bombs, and some are known to break straight out of the box, which is super unfortunate because this is such an awesome toy, but no copy is really safe to actually play with. Season 3 was the last season to have deluxe Digivolving playsets, and these are some of the best. We have our main 3 Digimon. Terriermon is once again the best of them. His cutesy form fits this toy line perfectly, and he digivolves into Gargomon by snapping on some pieces. I like that you literally have to put pants on him. The Gargomon form is adorably goofy looking. The playset mode is also super fun. One of Terriermon's ears becomes a crane to pick up Digimon out of Gargomon's pants, while the other becomes a slide, and it looks like there's a little arena inside his head. Very fun. In addition to our main 3, there were also playsets of Impmon, who again looks amazing in this scale and turns into a really goofy looking Beelzemon mode, as well as Leomon and Cyberdramon. And that is the Digimon Tamers toy line. I think this line improved on some things, like the transformations not heavily relying on parts forming, but it also had a lot of issues. Mostly breakage issues due to gold plastic syndrome, which is kind of terrible and has made a lot of these toys impossible to play with. And that's gonna wrap up the first part of this 2-video series. Sorry for making you wait, but this project kind of doubled in size once I realized what was going on. I hope you don't mind. Thanks to Toy Hacks for sponsoring this video. Check out their website linked below. And please consider checking out my Metal Dumb Jake shirt design, designed by Centipede.gov on Instagram. I think it looks absolutely badass, and I'd like to do more special designs like this. They're only being sold until May 15th, so be sure to grab one while they're available. If you enjoyed the video, please consider liking and subscribing. And if you'd like to support me further, I have a YouTube membership and Patreon. For $1 a month, both give you the same thing: an invite to my super chill Discord server, where we talk about toys daily, and have weekly tokusatsu watch parties. You also get access to my infrequent members exclusive podcast, where I sit down with other content creators to talk toys. Alright, I'll see you in the next one. Ciao!